Hello, everyone, and welcome to Win Championship Traits for Life, a show focused on strengthening the mental fitness of athletes, coaches, and anyone and everyone that works with a team at any level. I'm Lee Elias, that's JB Spizzo, and we're joined today by Brian Covey. Brian's resume is one that's going to get our audience excited. He's a native of Memphis, Tennessee, and Brian played soccer at the pro and Olympic levels before taking on a career as an influencer, speaker, top-rated podcaster via his show, The Brian Covey Show, an author through his book, Conversations with Covey, and a wealth advisor while serving as the VP of one of the largest mortgage companies in America. But beyond his professional accolades and titles, Brian is all about balance in fitness, wellness, and life. One of the things that stood out to me when doing research is that Brian always lists himself as a father, husband, and family man first. I love that. This is a conversation I know we are looking forward to. Brian, welcome to the show.
Guys, this is awesome. Thanks for having me on. And this is one I've been looking forward to. I'll just tell you, with 3 kids myself and all that, you said, referencing the dad piece. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Brian, that's a great segue into our first question. Typically I ask about your athletic background, but I'm thinking, sticking with what we just said, I want to lead off with this. You always list your family first on all your business sites, social medias. It's obvious when someone meets you, they're going to hear your soccer dad, your husband, you're proud to do what you do. I want the audience to hear this. Why do you do that? Why do you lead with that?
And I think that was my real calling. And being a dad, I've been married almost 20 years to my lovely bride, Nicole. And I look at that as that's the part of life that most people don't get to see, right? And it's shaped who I am. And people talk about this all the time, like the biggest influencers of life, right? And you may listen to podcasts, you may listen to books, and all those things are great. The reality is the people you spend the most time with, actually for most of us in our lives, is our family. And for me, it's my kids and going to their sports events. And I learned so many lessons from them. And then of course, with my wife being there, not only one of my biggest fans, but also not necessarily the biggest critic, but the one that's the realist with me. And so that's going to shape who I am. And so how could I not include them in my story and be proud of them? And, they're all 3 of our kids are very different, but I take pride in the fact that that's my mission. And at the end of my life, we're all going to die at some point. I want to make sure that that legacy continues. And then I've instilled in them, things like integrity, hard work, and they're going to continue in society and contribute, right? Because that's going to happen to all of us one day.
Absolutely. We were talking a little bit in the pre-show about, and this is true for you and I and JB too. When you're younger and you're pursuing a goal, whether that's pro sports or something else, the message we're talking about right now might not resonate that much. I mean, you understand it, but not on the level of someone who's there. But the reason I wanted to lead with this, and this is kind of cool, when we talk to professional coaches, professionals such as yourself too, Brian, and anybody who's, gotten to the top level, we always ask them, like, what are the 3 or 5 traits that are shared among the athletes at this level? And it's never, well, the skill. It's never the, this guy is so good at this aspect of the game. It's character. It's dedication. It's love of the sport, right? It's all these ideals that you express really in what I just said about your family first. You got a clear character trait there about who you are. So young athletes and young coaches, and JB and Brian, feel free to follow up on this. You might not have kids, and that's okay. And your goal might to be a professional athlete. That's awesome, right? But know the character of how you do that, who you do it with, the people that are surrounding you. How do you treat your parents? How do you treat your teammates? How do you treat the people around you? You've got to be a pro at that too, right? Yeah. And you can start practicing that right now.
So you hit on something I'm very passionate about. And this is something I look back at my sports days, and you're right. The people that excelled and made it to the collegiate level, made it to the professional levels. And then I look at business. I look at great parents today, and all that is you have to learn to be a great teammate.
Right.
You have to. And that means relating to people that you don't like, that you won't agree with, that you're not always going to be in unison with, that you're going to have conflict with. You got to figure out how to have relationships with people on and off the field, in the classroom, outside the classroom. And what I would say is your ability to connect up with a diverse amount of people and be open and curious to their point of view, their perspective in life is not only going to make you a great teammate, but later in life, when you do get a job, you create your own company and you're starting to build out your own team over there, your ability to connect with people and be a great teammate in life is going to be your success metric that is going to determine how well you do in life. It just is. And I look back, it's funny, some of my best teammates are the most successful. Some of my teammates that I look back and go, wow, they didn't build relationships. They were quite troubling. they're not going as far. And
Right.
so I got to put a correlation to that because I've seen it and we can't deny that. That's part of it. So be a great teammate.
No, I think that's so important, Brian. Thanks for being on this show. And Brian, when they do a movie of me and Lee, you can play Lee because you know what? You got it going on. You're good.
Yeah.
Good look. You got the Hollywood look there. I love it.
I hope he's willing to shave his head then. I don't have any hair. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah. Go ahead, JB.
Yeah. No, Brian, you know, you're a warrior, a leader, you're a parent. I love it. You know, I have three grown kids and I love it. My youngest daughter always says, you know, Spizos, we hustle. And so I think it's important that you got to do this. And you talk about lessons learned, you can learn from your children. Before I get into my question, I'm just going to tell you a little story. So my son played college hockey, he was a college hockey player. And I was working in pro sports then in hockey. So, you know, I kind of knew a little bit about it. And his coach was a good guy, but I didn't think was a great communicator. I didn't think he was great for college men as far as communication. Super great guy though. And it was funny one day, you know, we were having a few years later, having a beer with another dad that I know, his son played, and I was having a beer and I'm like, yeah, too bad, you know, they didn't have a better coach. And my son right away spoke up and said, hey dad, you know what? He wasn't that bad. And I was like, whoa, you know what? I need to turn that chirp down a bit. And I learned something from there because that's exactly how, you know, we should be. And we need to look at that. So you learn something from your children, which I think is important. But, you know, you're working with teammates. You talked about team chemistry, how important that is, you know, probably like a hockey locker room, you know, being in a soccer locker room, it's diversity of humans from all over the world, just like hockey. I think that's so unique. You know, you have a Swede, you have, you know, a Finn, you got a Czech, you got a Russian. And in your case, you know, you got people from everywhere as well. And so talk about that team bond and that team chemistry, and maybe even not the most successful team that you've been on as far as statistics and championships, but the closest bond team you've been on, and how do you think it got there?
So I'll tell you a story that'll connect the dots of these two that actually went back. I played at University of Memphis, D1. They're having a great run, by the way, right now on their women's team. So I took my daughter, who's a freshman in high school, and we go to this college ID camp. She trains with the college team for a few days and gets to experience, like, what would it be like? What do the college players do? She gets to hang out, actually train beside them and with them. She made a very interesting observation. They were finishing up training. It's like 9 o'clock at night, 9:30, right? They're coming out of the locker room. We're kind of chit-chatting. They're all going out to dinner somewhere. They're going to go get food, hang out and all of that. She's like, wow, that's really cool. They're going to go hang out. And I thought about that. That was much of what my experience was. The teams that I was the most involved and committed and typically the most successful, we would go out and do things together. I mean, it doesn't mean that we were the only people we hung out with, but for my daughter to notice that, and I have to say, to see them succeeding right now, if you were to ask their coach, I don't know that they're the most talented team. Honestly, I can't tell you if they have the best 11 players in the field or not. I don't know. But what I got to believe is part of their success is because they were willing to go out after training and they spent time together off the field. They're fighting for each other on the field. You could just tell there was a different bond. With any great team, I would tell you, instead of waiting for someone else to be that leader, my junior and senior year in high school and college, the team elected me to be the captain, which I took on as like a very big honor. And I think it's what's been a kind of a catalyst in my leadership growth, is never underestimate your power to influence people around you to do the right things and to do extra things, right? Showing up early, staying late, doing extra lifting and conditioning training, making sure that you're eating properly, making sure in college you're not going out and drinking and doing stuff that's going to impact your performance. Look, anybody can be a leader. And I will tell you, I look back to that, JB, that's it. Like, how can you connect with people on and off the field?
Right.
That's where the best teams are going to win. Look at it right now in pro sports. You can see the egos when they get in the way. The most talented teams may not be winning.
Right.
But I'll take a Tom Brady any day of the week, and you watch that connection. I'll say he does it better than anyone I've ever seen. And how does he continually bring people together? Look at what he does off the field in the time that nobody sees him on camera.
It's so true. It's so true. And, you know, you can tell that too. And I won't mention any names, but I'll just say there have been some athletes with, we'll either say troubled pasts or, stressful pasts, and they go play with this guy and they become champions with him because he just demands that level of respect. You know, Brian, since we're talking about soccer, I'll switch it to its proper name of football for a minute. You know, when I was living in England, Leicester won the Premier League.
Oh yeah.
And
we
I
do.
remember, this is what I remember, is no one could figure out how they did it. And I'm sitting there and I remember thinking, it's so obvious what they've done, right? And I go, the coach is taking them out for pizza after wins. And there's like, you expect me to believe, I'll spare everybody my English accent, but you expect us to believe that this guy took him out to pizza and that's why they're winning. I said, yeah, he's got the most bonded team in the Premier League. And everyone now thinks they're going to lose. So it's just growing and growing and growing. And they did win. And it was, I think, 5,000 to 1 odds. I think I remember doing this, that the odds Elvis was still alive was better than Leicester winning the Premier League. Right? You can look that up. It's not a joke, right? So it's one of those things with team bonding. It's something we talk about a lot on this show. And again, JB, his military experience is incredible. I always say we look to the military to find the greatest team because that is the greatest team, right? And JB has so much leadership experience. That's why I love talking to people like you, Brian, because you just bring it right to the forefront. That team bond is essential to winning, or at least succeeding. I can tell you this, you can't win without it, right?
Right.
Never been on a team that was like great skill-wise, won a championship, we all hated each other. It doesn't happen. Like, you might not like everybody, but you don't hate each other, right? So, Brian, I want to turn the conversation kind of almost to the opposite of this real quick. You know, part of what we do on this channel, Grit, is we're really trying to break the stigma behind, you know, mental strength, mental fitness in sport. And I think one of the things that we don't do enough, and it's starting to happen more now, is talk about the adversity that we've faced in our lifetimes within sport. We always look to the championship moment, but not those moments of pain or reflection that led up to it. So can you share with us a time period in your life or a team you've been with, or a story of adversity that you faced, how you overcame it, and how that made you a stronger person?
Wow. So I was actually sharing this last week, and this comes up, and it's a painful season in my life, but I look back that had it not happened, it wouldn't be who I am today. And it stems around my own belief in myself and my fitness. And I was playing AAU basketball. I was a pretty good athlete, right? I could do that. I was playing soccer, playing football and all that. I was overweight. My AAU basketball coach actually was our pediatrician. I'll never forget going in to see him. And he's like, this is really bad. Your cholesterol, your blood pressure, where you're headed. And keep in mind, I'm like 13, 14 years old. So already kind of like trying to figure out as a boy, like I'm wearing 2 shirts, I'm covering up because I know, but I'm still a good athlete. But I'm headed down this road that would forever change my life, which was I was significantly overweight. I was going to potentially affect myself for the rest of my life with blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, all these things that had run in my family. And I was very well aware of it. That change not only impacted me, but it impacted my whole family because I went on this diet and started figuring out, okay, I've got to wake up at 5 a.m. and go train. I've got to do these things. And most people don't see that. They see Brian now and I do CrossFit and all these like cool things and played professional sports. The reality is, man, I was potentially headed down a road that I would never have played even past college or past high school, right? Like it would never have happened. But what it taught me in that moment was like, I need to take ownership of not just my physical side of things, but my mental health was struggling too, right? When you're eating bad and you're not taking care of yourself, you're not sleeping well, and there's all these other factors that happen. And as a teenage boy, like, you know, you might try to put on the front and go, man, I got it all figured out. I'm cool. Man, there's a lot of depressing moments in that season, if we're honest about it, right? And you're thinking like, do I want to live? Do I want to be around? Do I want to do that? And fitness for me was almost a way out of some of those demons and like depression of, if I take care of myself, the next day I feel good. If I eat well right now, I feel good. If I work out today, I feel better. You start stacking that over time and it becomes an identity. It wasn't just what I did, it was who I was. And people knew me for it. Like, man, Brian's just always training. He's eating well. And they'd laugh like, oh, you can get the grilled chicken? Yeah, I'm gonna get the grilled chicken.
Good dog.
I'll never forget. It was stemmed from a coach that called me Pizza Boy. And he had the best intentions. And I will say we had a close enough relationship for all the coaches out there. We had a close enough relationship. He could push my buttons that way and would in a way just, it put me in a spot that I knew I needed to make a change. And it never, I will say this, he had such a great relationship with me. I knew he cared about me. I knew he was trying to make me better. Thank goodness he took the care and had that relationship built that he could say those things to me to snap me out. Because look, as parents, my parents love me no matter what. I believe that. they probably wouldn't have said anything. They're like, we love you, 30, 40 pounds overweight or not. You got to find people in your life, and coaches have that unique opportunity to speak truth and to help people beyond, because still to this day, I'm now passing that legacy on to my kids about why it's important to be not only physically healthy, but mentally healthy as well. Right. And that to me, most people don't see those seasons.
Brian, that's amazing. And Lee and I always say, and we tell coaches all the time and business professionals, people may not always want to hear the truth, but they tend to trust those that deal in it. And, working in pro sports, we had a coach and he was very direct with players, and he would be like, Brian, you're not in the lineup tonight, and this is why. But once you do A, B, and C, you're back in the lineup. And he was very direct. It wasn't like, well, you're playing terrible or anything else like that. Yeah. You need to improve in these three areas. And I think that's so important to do that. The other thing that Lee and I always talk about on the show, it's more, and you said it, you were like, I was still a pretty good athlete. I was a little overweight. I could get away with it. So it's much more than just the physical fitness. It's the mental fitness. It's the emotional fitness. It's the spiritual fitness. I think just maybe, Lee, you can correct me, last year, an NHL team drafted a young man with a pretty scrupulous record. He used to haze people growing up. He was not a good young man, and they just drafted him because of his talent. And then of course, they got fallout for it, and then they rescinded it and all that. But my point is that, if you're a young athlete, you're growing up and you're pretty talented, but you're not a good human being. That's it. Like there's more to that. And, we always use, you rose to professional sports, and that's a wonderful thing. And you were able to make a living at it. And, I always say that, some of these young men and women, will rise to where they're being a professional, but they're going to be a professional at something. That's so, right. And that's what you should continue to work on. Love that story. I'm going to circle back, because you talked about being a leader in the locker room. And I think sometimes, in hockey, we take the best player, we put a C on them. You're the captain. And maybe that's why you were, picked in college to be the captain. Maybe you were the best player. But I also think that there's other people in that locker room that can help read the tea leaves for you and just help one person. And sometimes, well, I don't want to say anything because I'm not the captain or assistant captain, but no, it's everybody giving way together that makes that culture great. You want to expand on that a bit for us?
And I love the way you frame that up too. Is our captains were voted on by the team, which I thought was pretty unique. I thought that was special. And you do have to have a bit of skill, right? Like you've got to be capable. We weren't voting somebody captain that's not out there contributing. It's hard to do that and have a bigger impact. So I think let's just call it what it is you need to be a contributor on the field. But off the field, it became this responsibility. I think it was really smart by coaches, and just think about that entire kind of setup that we have captains. You're saying, hey, you're my on-field captain. You're now giving additional responsibility, and you're going to find out who can rise to the top. And the good thing about that is, as a coach, is like if you select the wrong person, sometimes people will select two captains, or you can adjust the captains, different things there. You can always pivot and adjust. But for me as a captain, what I realized is it was an additional responsibility that I knew I needed to be so far above the line of what our standards were. And it's become who I am, of like, even in business today, or as a parent, as a spouse, is like, you got to live so far above the line. Doesn't mean I'm perfect by any stretch. Trust me, I'm not. Plenty of mistakes. But what you'll find with me is consistency. I'm always going to try to do the right thing. I'm always going to speak the truth. I'm always going to be that person that puts in that extra effort. And even to this day, I think a lot of that came from being a captain, and just, you almost put the pressure on yourself, which shapes you and molds you into who you are. So if you ever have the opportunity, for all the high school athletes or younger athletes out there, you should try that. That to me is a almost internship in a way for future opportunities in your life. And you should seek those out.
I love that you said that, because I'll tell a funny story too. When I was a teenager, all I wanted was to play hockey. That was it. And I remember my parents kind of masterfully did this, and again, I was always thrust into leadership positions too, but they always said to me, Lee, you need a backup plan just in case hockey doesn't work out. And here's the thing. I've always appreciated that they worded it that way, because so many parents and coaches say, well, you're never going to make it, so you have to have something else to fall back on. Or you're never going to make it. Make sure you look into this. And I've always hated that message, because if you have a dream, whatever it is, you have the right to your dream. All right. And no one should tell you shouldn't pursue your dream. And look, you might not get it. That's life. Right. But we talk about this with leadership and character and skill sets in a lot of ways, that as a young athlete, and JB just mentioned this, physical fitness, we all know what that is. We all have an understanding of that. Mental fitness, and I do say only mental fitness now because it's easier to correlate. You have to equally work on that as well, right? Because when you put physical fitness, mental fitness together, sprinkle on some leadership, in your case, Brian, right? You're becoming a good human being, and good human beings tend to go farther, right? Whether it's sport or not. And again, for the young athletes and coaches, I want you to understand that. And Brian, you're totally proving this. Like that is the complete package. You have to work on all of them at once. It's not enough to just be skilled.
Yeah.
So, another thing you said that I love, and just reiterating, like you said, is when you talked about that coach that motivated you. One of my favorite lines, and it's said a lot of different ways, but my favorite way it's been said has been in a movie called Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse. And there's this great line where Spider-Man says to another Spider-Man, it's not about saving the world. It's about saving one person at a time.
Yeah.
And I love that, because if you as a leader or as a player, as a coach, anybody, look at all the problems at once, the weight will collapse you. All right. Nobody can do that. But if you take it one thing at a time, as a coach, my attitude's always been, if I can impact one person in the room positively for their life, man, what a gift that is. Not for them, for me to have the opportunity to do that. Right. And Brian, you're dedicating your life to that.
Yeah.
So this is funny. The reason I love this interview, Brian, is, we have all these questions prepared, and we've already diverted 6 or 7 different ways. But this next question I actually wrote, I have to read it, because when I do research on a guest, I never just want to read their Wikipedia page or whatever the first line of their website. I really want to get to know the person. But on your website, I found these 5 tenets that you listed as a pathway to success. And I'd be remiss if I didn't actually read these and go into them. So they include, in brief, being kind to others, always being a learner, being hungry, surrounding yourself with great people, and being passionate about your vision, which we just spoke about. These also sound like the pillars of a great sports team. So could you explain to the audience why, as athletes, it's important to expand those skill sets from their sport community to their actual community, the workplaces, and beyond the field of play?
Oh man, I love it. I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, where that came from is a coach of mine and I were working on my LinkedIn profile. And that's where a lot of times, like, we're trying to attract top talent to join us and just kind of share what we do, what makes us different. Like, man, when I show up on LinkedIn or I'm reading a boring resume, I can't read boring resumes. So I'm like, well, what if we brought it to life? Like what if I actually shared like who I am, what I believe?
Right.
And it was this interesting exercise. And that's where that really was birthed from. And I did rely a lot on what were the great sports teams? What were the things that we had in common? Like when I was in a great rhythm or flow, like what was happening there? And I did start with be kind, because look, it costs nothing.
Right.
Today, every one of us, you're going to encounter somebody today that's going through a really tough season. You won't know it. They may not tell you about it, but you need to be aware of it. Guaranteed today, every day, if you're paying attention and you pick your head up and you actually get out in life and talk to people, somebody's gonna be going through something. So why not be kind? Why not smile? My youngest probably really embodies this the best. He's the funniest. Like, he just has this natural love of life. When you see him, he's smiling. And everybody's like, my parents like, oh, he's a little you and all that. And I tend to smile a lot. I said, you know what? Smiles are free. When's the last time you saw somebody that smiled at you and you didn't have that urge to kind of smile back? Right? Like, that's free. And as I went through the tenets, I felt like they were actionable items that any of us could learn to do better. And while you may be at some level of success, you could always do more of it, right? So if my goal is to impact one person a day and I want to be kind to them, great. Maybe tomorrow it's to impact 2 people. It could be going through your grocery store, going through the Starbucks line. It could be at your game. And you're just nice to another teammate. All the young athletes out there, don't underestimate the power of you being nice to someone else on the team. They could have had a really crappy day at school and failed a test, or something's happened in their home life that you don't know about. You could be the one person that day that smiles at them and is nice to them. So I kind of built the framework around that foundation. And it were things that I said, man, if I was going to be part of a team, part of a family and a unit and a tribe, who would I want to be around? And what I find is we put that out there, we're going to attract people like that. And I believe we can then start to influence that world around us.
Right.
And then we embody those traits. And then people go, yeah, that's cool. I could be nicer to people. You know, I could be a fountain, not a drain. Like we talk about some of those things. And I could be a really great person. And then we're all contributing at a higher level. And that was my goal, is how do I inspire people to do more and to take what they have and to make an impact?
That's awesome. You know, it's funny. I do another show, and JB, you'll like this. You know, I do another show about military veterans transitioning to civilian life, and it's funny because we learn a lot about that in terms of the transition. But there's congruencies between military and also athletes transitioning to civilian life. And one of the questions we instruct the listeners to ask when you're in an interview is, what type of team culture do you have here? Right. And to be fair, that's not a question that's asked typically of any interview, much less military, right? What is your team culture, right? Because it's important. It's severely important. And again, now look, young athletes, I understand too. You're just trying to make a team. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking a coach. Can you tell me a little bit about your team culture? What kind of team culture? I want to know if I fit into that, right? You'll get a few reactions. You'll get one, either a very impressed coach, a very surprised coach, right? Coach who goes, I don't really have an answer for that, which is, you know, maybe you've inspired him or her that day, right?
That's right.
But culture is everything. It always comes back to this for me, Brian. It's not what you do, it's who you do it with. All right. And we spoke a little bit in the pre-show, and JB, you know this. I have worked at some of the top levels in sport. And while the work was cool and it was fun, and at the time I was proud to say, I've been to this place, man, it was miserable because of the people I was with. It didn't matter what I was doing. So culture, kindness, you know, again, you said this quote, Robin Williams said it so well, of you just never know what someone's going through. The guy who cuts you off in traffic, you don't know what that person's been through that day. That might be the worst day of their life.
That's right.
So I personally go out of my way. I don't make it uncomfortable. But when I'm walking down the street, I go to a place, I'm like you. I smile. Hey, how you doing? You know, it's funny. Like 8 out of 10 times I get this shocked, like, yeah, I'm good. Thanks for asking. People don't ask that. Last quick story I'll tell you, and then I'll get back to it's your time. I want to make sure I don't take up all of it. I remember when I was younger, my father, my mother, and my father, very good, kind people, hard workers. But I remember we were out one day and I said something to him like, wow, I really like that lady's dress, right? Something like that. And he goes, well, have you told her that? And I go, well, I don't know I don't know her. He goes, if you like her dress, go tell her you like her dress. So I walked up to her and I said, hey, just want you to know, I really like your dress. Man, I made her day. I totally made her day, right? And she told me how much time she spent on that and stuff. And I was younger. I learned in that moment of like, we have these positive thoughts a lot. We don't even say them. We're just thinking them. So I think you're right. Go out of your way. Just say hello to someone. You go to Disney World. If you go to Disney World and you're from the Northeast United States, they're so polite down there. It's actually uncomfortable for the first hour, right? Because they're so polite. But by the end of the day, you're jovial and wonderful and you're at Disney. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to go off on that. I really appreciate you diving into that. And I want to say this again. I love that you lead off with your family life. I love that the next thing you come down to is culture, right? Wow. Before you even get to here's what I do.
It's great. And Brian, you talked about a couple of things. I've took a page of notes already. I think it's important that, you know, I talked to a business professional friend of mine. He's a CFO of a great company. And we talked about the other day, I was like, why do people stay in your company? And he went through the whole things. And he said, why do you think they stay? I said, 2 reasons. 1, for the culture, because it's awesome. Or 2, they have no vision, meaning they're just in it. They're just going to stay in it. And he's like, yeah, you're exactly right. So, you know, people change companies just for culture, not even money.
Right.
And so people understand, well, where does that culture come from? Well, of course, it starts with the leader of the organization, but it all comes from that internal team chemistry. Of course, it's the leader of the organization to ensure it's healthy, because if it's not healthy, then you get things like that's going on with, you know, the Chicago Blackhawks and some of these other teams, because somebody allowed something that to negatively affect the culture and didn't nip it in the bud right away. So I think it's important that people understand that culture is so important in every organization you come from. So you're an entrepreneur, you're a business professional. Why do people come to work for you then, Brian?
So I bring this unique 20-year experience plus the sports side that I think has given me perspective through all those mentors and coaches, that when people usually join, they're looking for something more, right? They're looking for something, and it's different from each person. But I think what makes me different is I'll slow down to listen to what do they want to accomplish? And I want to know before you join our team, can I even remotely provide what you want? Because if I can't, you should not join my team. And I'm very direct with people. It catches them off guard where I'm like, I want to understand with absolute clarity what your goals are and where you want to go, because our environment is one that you don't need to leave our organization and our team to get promoted and to have more responsibility, to have a better title, to make more money. We will create that with you and for you. But if I don't understand where you're trying to go, I can't help you. And maybe I'm not the best person for it. And I tell everyone is, I'm not for everybody. Our team is not for everybody. We put team above everybody else. And I'll tell you a story this week. We had somebody self-select out, and high producer on all accords, doing a lot of, volume and all this stuff. But if you dig below that, what I'll find is people that are not coachable don't last in our organization with me. There's going to be enough tension, and it's okay. Like I would tell everybody young that's listening to this, or young coaches, that tension is healthy, because I need people to go where they're going to be in the right environment for them. And if they're not coachable here, and I'm going to give you feedback and you are not willing to accept it, we will not do well together as things go on. And so I think people join because they want to be coached, they want to be improved, and they know I have their best interests at heart. They know truly without a shadow of a doubt that I have their back, and I'm going to not only challenge them, but I'm going to encourage them along the way. And that's a unique kind of dichotomy of, I'm going to be compassionate, but I'm not letting you off the hook. If you said you're going to do this and you said this is what we're going to accomplish, we're going to figure it out. We can pivot, we can adjust, we can go a different way to get there. We don't quit. We do hard things here. We accomplish things. And I think what we've built is this really unique culture. We talk about collaboration over competition, meaning that we don't need to compete with each other. Gone are the days of like corporate America, like I've got to beat you out to get that job, and like I've got to show you up on my team to make myself look good. No, not at all. I'm looking for the people that are the best teammates, that support people even when they're not compensated for it, and they're going to step up and take on challenges, and they're going to see opportunity, and they're going to do it without me asking. Because I want to create leaders that are creating other leaders, and it's generational, and that we build that out. That's why I'd say that's why people join us, and they will find with me, you're going to get a very unique blend of a lot of passion and a lot of energy. That I run fast, and I expect that of people around me. And so it's going to, just by gravity and kind of an undertow, it's going to pull you into opportunities for yourself to learn and grow. And I believe in coaches and mentors. I think that's one area that if we all were to take that step, we could all improve a little bit every day. And so that's our culture. And we're always just trying to get better together. And I say that I don't have it all figured out, but you know what? I've got some great people around me, and I'm willing to figure it out with you. And that's what we're going to build.
No, that's great. And when you win together, right? When the company makes money, you all win. And that's the thing that some people forget. They want to look at the stat sheet or what else, or what did I personally do, instead of saying, how did we all win together? Because that's the most important part. I love it, Brian.
I've tried it the other way. Let's be real. We probably all tried. You've seen it probably in the military, JV. And it's like, you can always find when we tried it that other way, and that doesn't work. When you're out for yourself for money or title or things like that I've personally chased in my career, it doesn't work out for you or anyone around you. And so I would encourage people, like, be that great teammate in all things. Be great. I think Dabo Sweeney shared it the other day on a podcast. He's like, bloom where you're planted, meaning be great where you are, whatever role you're given. If you're a janitor, you're the CEO, it doesn't matter where you are. Be great where you are. And then you'll be afforded opportunities, because people are going to see how wonderful you treat the opportunity you're currently in. They're going to want to give you more.
Absolutely. Superstar in the role asked of you. That's what Lee and I always say. You can keep climbing. You're in this position. You don't have to necessarily like it, but be a superstar while you're there. So
that's it.
For those of you listening to this is what I love about Brian, is that he's not just talking about business. He's not just talking about sports, right? This is a carbon copy of how teams, again, we say it at the top of every show, however a team manifests itself, this is exactly how it should operate. One thing you brought up, Brian, I have to bring up. So when I work with the team, I always ask two questions first. Same two questions every time. I don't even hide this, right? I go, first question is to the group, can you define the word trust without using the word trust in the definition? The reason I ask that is because everybody thinks they know that definition, but I ask them, and you find out things very quickly. One is that everybody has a slightly different definition of it. right? And then most people realize it's not just a definition, it's a feeling. There's levels to it. It's a very complex thing, trust, but it is absolutely essential as the foundation of any relationship, team, individual, whatever, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing I ask, and you tapped on this, is what motivates you? And I am shocked, and I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm just shocked how many people do not do that. They do not ask the question or even know what motivates their athletes, their workers, their teammates. And I love that you do that, because the truth is this, the follow-up I have to that is, if you don't know what motivates them, then how the hell are you motivating them? Right? It's simple. Right. And I think, if you take this either internally or externally, depending on where you sit as a coach and athlete, you want to know that so you can motivate them, but you also want to know that you want the person in charge to know that so that they're motivating you. And like you just said, what are your goals? Where do you want to be? I don't understand how teams succeed without that. Right.
Yeah.
You know how much easier it is to accept a role, even if you don't really love that role, when that person knows that, okay, they're trying to work me into something. And I've had these conversations with my own employees, my own players, right? So let's just expand on that just a tiny bit more, because, and maybe you can tell a story, like without names, of course, of a time you knew it motivated someone and how that maybe even changed their life. Because I've been on the other side of it too, Brian. And I've always said it, I've been in a bullpen, a sales bullpen. And somebody asked me one time, explain to me what that's like. I said, it's like all the color was taken out of the room, just not vibrant at all. Right. But when we're there together, it's unstoppable. Go ahead. I'm monologuing myself right now.
No, I'm listening as you say that. So I do have a belief that not everybody knows what they're actually motivated by or what their real goals are. Many people will give you surface level.
Right.
And I know as an athlete and as a leader at times, you may just have that response, like you said, like they have this just default response. What's trust? And they just start throwing things at you.
Right.
I think for all of us, we've got to do inside work. And if I were advising anybody, coaches or young athletes, is I was fortunate. My dad's a psychologist. So I did a lot of that inside work and work on my own like mental fitness early in life to be very clear on who I was and what I stood for. And one of those you mentioned, I'll never forget, there was a time that my dad went in, and this will date me, age me a little bit, but it was back when people actually still paid cash when they went into the grocery store and bought groceries. And I'll never forget leaving my dad, and I had to have been, under 10 years old, and he had given the cashier some change, and then they gave him change back, and we're leaving with the groceries, and he's counting the money up and all that. And he realizes they gave him too much. You got a decision to make. He doesn't know I'm watching. I really don't know what's going on. Honestly, I think he's just counting the money. Like, I don't know math that great yet. I don't know what's happened, but I will never forget what he did next, which was he went back to the cashier and let them know that they gave him too much money back. Accidentally, they gave him the wrong bill back. It was too much. And that for me has stayed, because my dad's one of my biggest influences and mentors, is when nobody's watching, like, who are you?
Right.
What really motivates you? Because what motivated him in that moment, he probably needed the money to support us, because we didn't grow up with a lot of money. And he probably like, somebody gave you found a $20 bill on the ground. Like, what would you do? And in that moment, it taught me, like, we need to be motivated by things bigger than those things, right? Like, are we really motivated to make a difference with people? And I would encourage anyone, my daughter's 14 and freshman, all that. And I always try to share that with her is, who are you influencing and motivating on your team around you? And I ask her that, like, what motivates you? Like, why do you want to be an athlete? And we've talked about all this stuff. And I think that's the question. You just got to spend time with people. And if you can be a coach, especially, I'll call them out right now. If you can be somebody that helps give clarity and shines light on that for an athlete today, you've changed their world. When they become someone that gets married, hopefully has kids and all these things later in life, they're a leader, they open their own company, you have changed the world. Because think about all the thousands of people that I look in my life that I've had hopefully a good, fingerprint that I've left something, made them better than they were before I found them. You got to find what motivates people and realize that could change over time too. And conversations are what lead to that, right? So the more conversations you have, the more you know. And I would tell you, just in business, I recognize on our team, we have over 20 leaders that report through into me that I'm in care of and all that stuff. And they are very different in what motivates them. The more time you spend with them and the more you listen and ask powerful questions, they will tell you. And sometimes it's okay just to ask them. Flip back on them. Hey, Lee, what's really motivating you right now? Like, why do you want to accomplish that goal? If you know what their goals are, which you should, ask. And don't be okay with they give you the first answer. Say,
Right.
tell me a little bit more about that so I can understand
Yeah, it's not a checkbox.
that
Yeah.
growth,
No,
man. That is real conversation. Don't just check the box conversation. Like you said, like don't be that person. Go deeper.
You
no,
know,
you got to peel back the onion. And Lee and I both know Mike Ruzioni, and he talks about that all the time from that 1980 Olympic team. He said Herb Brooks like peeled back the onion of every single
the
player.
core. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but he knew that, Ruzioni needed pushed, and he couldn't like take a day off. And even if he had a good game, he stood on him saying, you call that a game of Ruzioni? But Mark Johnson, who was their best player, his day could be a little off, but he knew, hey, Mark, no worry, you'll get it tomorrow. So
Yeah.
that's all that part about that. And you're taking time. And I love, Brian, that you allow all your leaders to have a different answer. And it's okay. Just put it in its place. Some people are motivated by different things. And it's okay because, everybody's not playing for the logo on the front of the jersey.
Yeah.
But if they're talented and they can help you be successful, you put that all in its proper place. And that's what you rise up and you bring it there. Brian, you're a wonderful leader. You're a wonderful speaker. You have a great sense about yourself. I love that story that you said about your father. A friend of mine was on an airplane several years ago, and a person was sitting next to him, and the person had left like their bag of stuff in the little pocket there on the airplane.
Yeah.
And inside there was $3,000 cash. And my friend tracked this person down and mailed him back that, and think about that. Like it was something the person needed it for a deposit on a home or something, whatever they were doing. But like tracked it down and said, you know what, I'm returning this money. And it's just so important to do those small things because you don't know how it's affecting. And again, this person didn't have a lot of cash going on either. So it's important to do those things. My question to you, Brian, is, and I think it's so important to do this. We do this as an exercise. If you had to send a text to your younger self, back to that 13-year-old self, who's, coach is calling you pizza boy. I love it though, because he knew what to do, but saying, hey, you got to get yourself straight. And you did.
Yeah.
And you did, because your talent would have timed out. It really would have.
Absolutely.
People would have caught up to you. Your talent would have timed out. We see that all the time with players 13 to 16, right? Their talent times out because everybody else is doing everything else. Send a text to your younger self. What are you going to write?
Trust my intuition. Thinking life, there have been times that I knew I should go do this, maybe not do that. In business now, it's hire this person, don't hire that person. It's those forks in the road that if I had known now I really trust my intuition. Like I've gotten very comfortable and confident in that space to know that there's a reason why I'm feeling that. There's experience layered upon mentors and coaches that have given me wisdom. I would give that to my younger self and trust it in that season, because there are times I look back and many times that was kind of self-inflicted, that I didn't trust myself. And I looked for external validation and things when I should have trusted myself. So I'd say trust your intuition.
It's a great answer. It's funny, Brian, again, just equating it back to sports, which I like to do on this show. I think our first experiences with that, and it is a feeling, right? Like I know exactly what you're talking about. If you're in business, you know exactly what he's talking about, right? But I remember learning this in sport and I found this so intriguing. And I know we have to the top of the hour, so don't worry, we're going to get out of here on time. I remember there'd be plays I'd made on the ice sometimes, and I could hear my brain go right before I make a pass or play, no, don't do that. Right. And I remember, but I would do it anyway. And I remember thinking like, okay, I got to start listening to that voice or at least train myself that when you get that feeling not to do it. And I'll tell you what, when I did, man, I got myself out of trouble a lot more than when I didn't. Right. And again, this is something that naturally evolves in sport. The reason I'm bringing it up is every athlete listening to the show and coach, by the way, because we do this with call making sometimes too. Learn to trust that voice.
Yeah.
All right. Like Brian's saying, and we all have it. Every athlete I've known that's ever competed at a high level has had that voice in some way. That's a heightened sense, right? We talk a lot about, we're not going to get into in this episode, but living in the present moment awareness, not being in the past, not being in the future, and focusing on what you control. That's part of it, right? Is being able to really hear it. And it's funny when you get quiet in your mind, what you hear, because you start to find your real consciousness in that moment.
Well, and what's cool about that is you can build this muscle. I really believe is even as a teenager, I was being exposed to that. And again, I was fortunate. My dad's a psychologist and I learned, things like visualization techniques and things to like really slow down and kind of meditation, but you can build that muscle. And I say that now as like a 44-year-old, I go, I've got that thing dialed in. And my wife says it all the time. She's like, trust your gut. Don't go against it. She's like, I'm just telling you, that's it. And I'm like, yeah. So
and it's real. It's a part of the brain. It's a part of the brain that actually gives you that instinct. And so it's part of it. You train it, it gets better. It's like anything you do. But what we do is we train everything else in our body and we forget the muscle in our head, which needs everything else positively to be put in there.
Yeah. And what I would encourage somebody to do, and this was later in life, I was given this feedback from a coach of mine. And for those that like to journal, this could be a great way for you is just start journaling those things and write them down because they may happen later. You may be able to come back to that. So write down those decisions, write down those feelings and those thoughts. And if you're somebody that likes to write, I started to journal during some of those seasons and it was unbelievable. And what came out of that writing and getting very uncomfortable, I'm not a great writer. So it was like uncomfortable for me at first, but as I got into a flow and started to write more, I actually started to tap into, I think, this extra part of like who I am and into my soul further, right? And that's just for all of us. It's a great way. It's a great outlet.
Brian, I was going to ask you, how do you define mental fitness and how you practice it? But I think you just did that, which is awesome. I love it when a question is organically answered. But yeah, for those of you listening, like Brian is onto it. And it goes back to what we were saying most of the episode. Physical fitness, if you're listening to this show, you most likely have a grip on that. Mental fitness. Begin to look at that the same way you're looking at your physical fitness. If you're going out there and practicing for hours and you're dedicated, you got the itch, man, you got it in your heart, that fire, that passion, you know what I'm talking about if you're listening. Have that equal passion for your mind because A, you're going to need it. You're going to need it. Two, it's incredibly neglected, right? If anything, if you need to look at this from an athletic point of view, it's going to give you an advantage, right? Especially when you get to college, pro, beyond, whatever. Right. So as Brian is saying, you have to dedicate the time to that. And again, our entire organization is on a mission to do that. Now, Brian, we only have a couple minutes left. I'd be remiss if I didn't let you tell the athletes and coaches, everybody listening, where can people find more about you? I mean, I know obviously your website and stuff, but where can they search you out? How can they interact with you to learn more?
This has been awesome. And I would love to connect up with you guys because, obviously my kids play sports and I connect up and I still help coach and we've got lots of coaches in our community. And I love that. I think that's really, for all of us that have been given that opportunity, I don't take it lightly if I didn't get to where I am today or through the sports levels without great people supporting me, my family and coaches. So I would love to help you on that journey. So definitely connect with me. My website's the easiest, www.briancovey.com. I am very active on Instagram. Somebody took Brian Covey, so I did the Brian Covey because it was so original. And I spend a lot of time there. And then I'm also on LinkedIn, but I'm on Facebook and all those. But I would welcome that opportunity. I've really enjoyed this season of my kids are all different ages, 6, 12, and 14, and just getting to spend time. And even if I'm not their coach, being around other athletes and just listening and learning. Many times, for all the coaches out there, our athletes are going to tell us a lot of the feedback and things that we can help them with. We just got to pay attention. And we have a unique opportunity to make a difference in that next generation. So enjoy that and really give it your best because you could be that one person that changes the trajectory.
And that's what it's all about, man.
Love it. Beautiful.
That's an awesome way to end it. Thanks, Brian, so much for being here today. You've been a phenomenal guest.
Awesome guest. I love it.
You guys are crushing it. Easy to talk to my guys, man. Hockey, soccer, football, wherever we go, man. I appreciate what you guys are doing. We need more guys out there and leaders, male and female, all alike. Like we just need to let's change this thing, man. Let's make a difference.
Well, exactly. Look, that's our mission, man. We're here to break that stigma. And again, this episode's another great influential and inspirational way of how there is absolutely enough space out there for all of us to exist. And that's really how it's going to happen. And you said this too, Brian, throughout the episode about your workplace culture and how you're running fast and you want people to run with you, and you're bringing them in. And I think that everyone in this space is trying to do that, right? It doesn't seem competitive when people like us meet each other. It seems like, yeah, look, that's right, man. We're going to do it. So I love it, dude. And that's going to do it for this episode of Win Championship Trades for Life, which is powered by Pivotal Moments. You can learn more about our organization, Pivotal Moments, and our channel Grit at pivotalmoments.org. We got a ton of inspirational content, entertaining content, and most importantly, educational content. So for Brian Covey and JB Spizo, I'm Lee Elias. Thanks so much for joining us. Make sure to keep an eye out for more episodes soon. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Win. Have a great day, everybody.